I should never get out. I don't know what to say. It's very hard out here. People think you're diseased. You're not diseased. You're human. You're human. You just need somebody to help you. You need a shower. You need somebody to give you clothes. You need somebody to do that. There's nothing wrong with us. We're human beings. We breathe, eat, just like God made us, just like you and me. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't stink. And if I stink, then bring me home and give me a shower. Or bring me somewhere to get one. But don't throw me away and look at me like I'm a diseased alien, because we're not. We're just like you and me. You could fall just like I could. If you lost your job and your home, you couldn't pay your mortgage, you'd be out there just as fast as I would.
In 1981, Ronald Reagan became President of the United States and immediately began to dismantle as many New Deal and Great Society gains as he could. Multimillionaires were given tax cuts on the backs of working people. Labor unions were wiped out of the map. Large American manufacturing companies doubled down on exporting jobs that were Americans before to third world countries. But to be fair to President Reagan, his Reaganomics did not end when he left office. His successor continued implementing it for 4 years. President Clinton governed 8 years without rolling back the neoliberal policies of the past, and so did President Obama. In 2018, we are still on austerity mode. We are still privatizing, we are attacking pensions, gutting the safety net, and we have an income inequality that just keeps growing. Truth is, we have been doing Reaganomics for 37 years under Republicans and Democrats.
Chili bean said, boys, I'm green, I don't know what you mean. You know that I'm so slow. What you want, I do not know. They said, now listen, Chili dear. Oh, by jingo, sent us here, you Lankan leany chili bean.
And Reagan, the first thing he did, or one of the first major things he did, is break the air traffic controllers union. And from there on, it was like a downward spiral. His attacks on working people just continued, whether it was cutbacks in government programs or attempting to disenfranchise people from being able to organize unions or being able to register to vote. In whatever way they could, the Republicans were attacking working people. As Trump is today, we see a continuation of Reagan's legacy, even on a higher level with Trump today.
So our campaign's a very grassroots campaign, and we don't take any corporate money. We raise money just from small donors, grassroots folks around the country and around the state and around our district. Small donations. My opponent, I think her average campaign contribution size to her campaign committee is over $500, and to one of her political action committees it's over $5,000. Our average contribution size is about $20 right now. We've got a lot more donors than she has, but our donors are strapped. These are tough times for ordinary Americans, for working folks. Incomes are stagnant, and the cost of healthcare and housing and everything else just keep rising. So that's one of the obstacles we have. And another, of course, is the corporate-owned media, whether it's the main newspapers in South Florida or even the TV stations. Many of them take their marching orders, so to speak, from a corporate headquarters 1,000 miles away. So there's less and less autonomy in the corporate media and the journalists, the reporters that are reporting on the news, and it's reflected in the way they cover our race. They always cover it as a horse race. They don't really go into the issues in any detail, and then they skew the news in a way that would undermine our message.
It's something that this Universal Declaration of Human Rights was agreed to by all the countries that made up the United Nations, including the United States. And it's something that is never talked about, that is never mentioned in the media, that and it's not being adhered to by the United States. To just follow the dictates of companies and corporations trying to make a profit and putting that ahead of human needs is what is affecting larger and larger number of people that they might not consider themselves poor now, but they are just a misstep away or a layoff away or sickness away from being poor.
From the 70s till now, labor unions have been under a drastic attack, and I think it all has to stems also from neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is the idea that the public sector somehow can't get itself in order. We need to shrink government. We need to privatize everything. We need to financialize. The financialization of the economy has stemmed from that. Because what do working class Americans do when their paychecks does not rise with the cost of living? Well, they get into debt, and then this is how we've sustained an economy from the late 70s, early 80s till now.
I've been working for Toys R Us for 24 years. I started there as my first job. Unfortunately, our doors closed this year due to corporate greed. A lot of my coworkers and myself are now out of a job with no severance pay, while the executives walked away with millions of dollars. I have coworkers that are struggling to pay medical bills, to just raise a family, to do the everyday things that we need to do. It's difficult without having a job.
A preacher went out a-hunting, 'twas on one Sunday moon. Of course was against his religion, but he took his gun along. He shot himself some very fine quail and one big measly hare.
I was in the Navy for 15 years. I did 2 wars. I've been deployed 7 times. I've been in combat, whole 9 yards. And I think we as veterans should not have to go through what we go through to get back here, to get our disability, to get whatever services we need, our health care, if we need housing, if we need jobs, etc. It shouldn't have to be that way. And I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it. President Obama actually did more good than any other president up until now with veterans.
Things began to happen. Greed became the major driving force in the country. Excuses were always there to justify greed taking action. And one of the things that happened, what we all know, is the exporting of jobs from the United States to overseas. Those people that exported the jobs, they didn't export the jobs because they were not making money. They were making money here. They just wanted to make much more money.
So Toys R Us workers were promised severance pay. Then it was denied a month later, saying because of the bankruptcy laws, Toys R Us workers were not entitled to any severance pay. That's been terminated. Not only did we not get severance pay, we also lost vacation time, personal time, because they don't pay that out. So we had to work through it. We worked till the end, till June 30th. However, corporate executives and the CEO left the company on May the 14th, and us workers were stayed to close the store. Why is the fight so important? Is because this affects not only us, the workers, but it also affects the communities and the people out there.
I'm homeless due to the fact that I was incarcerated for 2 years, and when I was released from prison, my father had passed away, so I had no place to go with cataracts, being blind in my left eye, legally blind in my right eye, with no insurance, trying to obtain work with no avail, not being able to find work because not being able to see, basically night blind, and it's been very, very difficult.
But now I need eye surgery and I have nowhere to go. You can't recuperate in an alley from eye surgery. I'm pretty sure that it's a dirty place, an alley, and that's my only choice now. I have nothing. I have nowhere to go. They keep asking me, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? I don't know. I don't know. So I'll be back at the park, on the beach. You go on the beach. The police run you off from everywhere. You can't sit on a public sidewalk that they don't come by and say, move it along, move it along, move it along. Well, you know, I'm not young. It's hard to move it along after you've been walking with all your belongings.
Personally gone through homelessness, begging friends, family for a place to stay, joblessness, jumping from one job to another, temporary jobs, temp agencies, welfare. I've been through it all. And still today, I know a lot of people who survive by cutting corners, skimming where they can. Thankfully, I've never had to get a payday loan, but I know a lot of people who are not able to make ends meet, pay bills without having to get a payday loan. And a payday loan only puts them deeper in debt.
I feel that society, here in America, society as a whole overlooks the homeless population to the point to where and nobody's, you know, really paying it attention, and it's clearly an epidemic regardless of how a person became homeless. You know, everybody has their issues. It's a lot deeper than that. I mean, you know, you are considered a drag of society by most, and it's just not right for this country to have as much money as it has for people to have a common cold turn into pneumonia because they can't afford to buy simple medications, over-the-counter medications to deal with it or address the issue. Cancer is developing in their bodies and they're not knowing it and not being aware of it because they don't have doctors to see about them or regular doctor visits to go to.
After 2 years, the house went in foreclosure. And so for the last 2 years, on and off, more than 6 months at times, I was homeless. I lived at the Salvation Army by the Urchin Heights Metro Station off 38th Street in Miami. I lived there for a few months, and then from there, I lived on and off with a few friends that would let me stay with them for a month at a time. Then I ended up 6 months ago at a veteran assisted living facility, more like a halfway house with about 30 other veterans.
So when there comes a report, here we go, Article 25, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, medical care, necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment. Have you ever
had to apply for unemployment in the state of Florida, you can go weeks and weeks before you get a first check. What happens to you then? What kind of life poor people, okay, poor people, you know, I hate to say poor people because a lot of people don't want to call themselves poor people, but having to go through poverty, people that have to go through poverty, they're not poor people, they're people that have been forced into a life of poverty because you can't get an unemployment check for 4 or 5 weeks. There goes the rent, there goes the food. What are you supposed to do?
So I don't know if I can go back to work. I always had great jobs. I didn't need to depend on anyone. Never had to ask anybody for anything. And now that's all I do. And I hate it. I hate asking people. A lot of people I know are just expect it. They expect that. But I don't. I like to take care of myself. I like to work.
Well, first of all, you know, the main people that push the whole myth that, you know, we have to live in a rat race and it'll be survival of the fittest, and those that can pick themselves up by their bootstraps will be the ones that prosper and survive, you know, or the main people pushing that myth are exactly the people who were born with silver spoons in their mouth, because, you know, we live in a class society and with inheritance, and therefore the ruling elite, the ruling class, passes on its wealth, its property, its control of the means of production to the next generation. So we have basically an economic nepotism occur constantly in our society. So that whole myth is not based on the real world.
It saddens me to know that the corporation did not do their part to help a company that's been around for over 70 years and take care of the store and their employees. It's very difficult to be in a company for that long and dedicate your life to and get nothing out of it in return. Families are figuring out how to just get by while corporate is living it up. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's heartbreaking.
Wages for all workers in the American economy, whether public or private sector, have not kept up in recent years. You see rising healthcare costs and housing costs and higher education costs, declining public schools. It's just a terrible perfect storm, so to speak. And they say about a majority of the American people now have less than $400 in savings, which means they're really just one healthcare crisis or car accident away from missing their rent, maybe being homeless.
I basically graduated high school, I went to college, I became a paramedic. I was hired at a young age, at 20 years old. I had all my certificates. I did everything right. I had my degree. I did everything correctly. Was hired. I bought my first property. Shortly thereafter, I met the person that I thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life. We ended up buying a home. I did everything you're supposed to do. I did it all correctly. And then came the crisis of 2007, the economic crisis. And then as an individual, you start thinking, okay, well, what happened here? Like, how is this that I've done everything correctly till now, and now I'm losing my home? I can't keep up with the mortgage payment. How is this? I mean, is it something that I did wrong, or is it, So you start questioning everything, and then this is where there's like an awakening. And I feel that same awakening, all working class Americans eventually will go through it, because we're all part of the same. I'm a firefighter, you could be a teacher, the other one could be a police officer, the other one could be working in retail, but eventually as a worker, you start realizing that the deck is stacked against you.
In Immokalee and Belglade are two towns in the South Florida area that maybe you've never heard about, but you are likely to have consumed some of their vegetables and fruits that find their way into people's kitchen tables nationwide. Immokalee is known for its tomatoes and greens, especially those you eat in the winter when the land is cold everywhere except in South Florida. Belglade produces mostly sugarcane. For the longest time, this area has been considered a third world nation within the borders of a rich and advanced nation. Working and living conditions, especially for migrant farm workers, are terrible in this area. In Belglade, the sugarcane process has become almost 100% mechanized, and thousands of farm workers have been left without a job. In Immokalee, farm workers have been successful at implementing a fair food program that prevents abuse, violence, and other forms of human rights violations in the workplace. As a result, many big agricultural corporations, chain restaurants, and supermarkets have refused to join this program or buy from vendors who are in the program.
We as farm workers have faced a lot of violence over the years, sexual abuse, wage theft, all forms of violence as farm workers in these chains, and that's why we're here.
Y estamos hoy aquí para hacer otro llamado al Wendy's y también a
We're having a campaign today and every day with Publix and Wendy's who have refused to join the Fair Food Program.
Ese mismo programa lo estamos ofreciendo para que Wendy's y Publix también lo usen para sus
So we as farm workers are asking for Publix and Wendy's to join this program where they only buy from suppliers who are also participating in the program and who have agreed to end abuses on their farms.
Something I don't remember growing up in the 1960s is this trend of people converting their own homes into a hotel or their personal car into a taxi. Not that that is such an awful thing, but if you work 40 hours and so does your spouse, you should not have to do this. Your car should be for your own transportation and pleasure. Same with renting a room in your home. This kills your privacy and makes you spend a lot of money to keep getting good recommendations for more business. All these companies work via an app, and for just sending you a traveler to spend the night in your home, they get a generous amount for doing close to nothing. This is why these companies are doing so well, because you do the work and put the room, bed, breakfast, clean sheets, etc., and they collect the big money. But people are often forced to take these raw deals because there is nothing else out there, and in this trickle-down economy, 40 hours a week is never enough. Also, payday loans is something new to me. I don't remember anyone who took these kinds of loans, but today they are very popular and with extremely high interest. And it is not rare to see people who take these loans and can't fully pay them go to the next step, which is to sell their plasma or blood. I have traveled a lot on my automobile in this country, and I can't say I've seen an area that has so many tolls and at such extravagant prices. In this area, to travel a few miles on an expressway can cost you more than $5, and you have not even left Miami-Dade County. How can a working class person survive this?
Everything's planned for a wedding so grand. In the spring I will bring her the ring. Then somewhere in town we'll both settle down, and all through the day I'll sing. If her eyes are blue as skies, that's Eddie O'Neill. If she smiles.
We need a Jobs for All program There's been legislation introduced in the House of Representatives year after year for a national jobs for all type of a strategy. We need Medicare for all because, of course, healthcare costs are one of the reasons that folks really can't get out of poverty. They can't even keep up with maintaining their own health. Housing costs sky high and rising. We need public housing. It's been years since we've had any real public, construction of public housing to address the needs of most Americans. We need the Federal Reserve to support Main Street the way it did for Wall Street. I think the Federal Reserve could be pushing really $1 trillion or more into state infrastructure banks to start rebuilding the economy that way, so state and local governments don't have to rely on the bond market where they have to pay interest as much as principal. So there's all kinds of strategies, public banking, postal banking. I really think that there's no shortage of great ideas, progressive ideas. The problem is the political system is stacked against it because corporate money really rules in Washington, D.C. And that's why, probably the top priority for any progressive agenda has got to be election integrity and election justice and getting corporate money out of our politics.
One of the things that I believe we need to do is we need to stand for the rights of working people. We need to stand for the right of minority people to participate in the gains of this society.
So the only way out of this is to organize. The only way out for working people is to fight back. You have to do something because you can be a quiet consumer, stay home. A lot of people, they see what's going on in the streets, they see how many homeless people there are, they see crime rising, but while their job while they still have their job, or they're still making their menial salary, they try to turn a blind eye on what's going on around them. And little by little, it's happening to other people until when it happens to you, who's going to help you?
We can only save ourselves. If you want to get a job done right, you better do it yourself. And we need a workers' government, okay? And for that, we need to organize ourselves politically. Why should we give a job, why should we give our votes to people that are committed and have different interests than we have? The capitalist, the billionaire capitalist class has two parties right now. And we need a new kind of party, our own party.
Regardless if you're a Republican or a Democrat or conservative or liberal or whatever spectrum you are. I mean, I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in either one. I think we have two pro-business parties that don't really care about the working class. So either we start something different or we move one of those parties more aligned with working class Americans. But I think the change is going to happen at the grassroots, at the local level, because we've seen what happens at the national level. We've seen what happens at even the state level. It's hard to get a candidate to get up to those places, but locally in mayor races, council races, I think it's possible because more of the door knocking, more of the campaigning that happens at the local level, labor unions, working class Americans, we could get together and actually influence these, and I think it's going to happen to change from the bottom up.
Sometimes I think I was a little fool.
You think you were or think you are?
Back in those days when I used to go to school.
Can you remember back that far? When you were a kid, gee, how you hated
what?
The little place where you were educated.
Although I didn't know it, I was lucky then. I wish that we were back again. in the little red schoolhouse.
Me too.
With my book and sleigh.
Those were the happy days in the little red schoolhouse.
Oh boy.
I was always late.
Yes, Bill, you were always. Do you remember, Bill, when you were a scholar in the days of yore?
Do I? How I'd stand right up there and holler, 2 and 2 is 3.
When we should have been learning.
Learning what?
About the golden rule.
We didn't want the golden rule. Our little hearts were yearning for the swimming pool.
That good old pool. When I was late, the teacher said, go bring your father right away.
You brought your dad, and after that he came most every day.
Oh, gee,
Jiminy gee,
I wanna be in the little red schoolhouse. Each morn, when Mother said it's after 8,
what a time poor Mother had.
Then she'd say, hurry, you surely will be late.
When I was late, it made the teacher awful mad. We'd start down the road with footsteps lagging.
But you remember we were always bragging.
I said when I get bigger, no more school for me.
But now that's where we want to be. In the little red schoolhouse. With a book and slate, in the little red schoolhouse, we were always late. We longed to be back there where we were scholars in the days of yore. How we'd stand right up there and holler, 2 and 2 or 3, when we should have been learning about the golden rule. Our little hearts were yearning for the swimming pool. Because I was so bad and acted like a clown.
You got a good licking and you couldn't sit down.
Oh, gee, I wanna be in the little red schoolhouse. 10 o'clock, the spelling lesson's just begun. Johnny throws an ink ball just for fun. If the teacher's here with an awful spat, she turns around and says, who did that?
Pretty little Percy in the very front row lifts up his hand and says, teacher, I know.
Then little Johnny whispers to the teacher's pride, you just wait till I get you outside. Johnny's told to stand up with his face to the wall. He says, I don't want her, and he tries to stall. If I stood up there, I'd take an awful chance. I got a great big tear in the seat of my trousers. Teacher sends you home to wash your face, and then you say, oh, what's the use to get dirty again? Oh, gee, I wanna be in the little red schoolhouse.